Welcome to NALUL, a weekly NALCS recap show that focuses on quick and sometimes humorous recaps of this week's League of Legends matches. We start today with day 1 of our Week 9 recap, where we'll be recapping the series between CLG and Dignitas. Starting with Game 1, so let's jump right in. Dignitas select Nasus, Maokai, Taliyah, Tristana, and Alistar. CLG select Shen, Gragas, Orianna, Kalista, and Morgana. Obviously, the first thing that jumps out at you this draft is the Nasus selection. Something we haven't seen competitive about 3 years now. The last time we saw that was in 2014, according to the NALCS broadcasters. And honestly, I think it's a good pick in the meta right now. The armor shred on the E really helps with the tanks. A lot of teams, I know in the LPL and LCK, are running those 4 tank cops with a Galio mid and like a tanky support. So it's probably really good against those kinds of comps where you can shred all that armor. I don't know if that's the greatest pick here situationally, due to Dig having the weaker 4-man squad without the Nasus in there and Shen being able to go places all the time. But I do think it's a good pick situationally in the meta right now, even in competitive. And I like seeing it. It's one of my all-time favorite champions. I love stacking champions like Nasus and Veigar. Make of that what you will. Realistically, I think for Dig to pull off a win here, they need to get rolling early. Ori is going to do a lot more work than in the late game than Taliyah will. Also, putting your best player on a champion that does nothing for the first 20 minutes has a chance of backfiring on you. Someday won't be able to impact the map like he would if he were a, say, a J4 or something along those lines. So the rest of the Dignitas is going to have to step up a bit if they want to win this game. And diving right into the game, at 4 minutes and 10 seconds, we get our first gank. Honestly, it's kind of a bit of Someday just being greedy. A few minutes prior to the gank, Shrimp had pinged out Omar God's position at Krugs. So Someday knew he was topside, and there was potential of a gank, and didn't respect the taunt range into the lane gank. Pick something like Nasus, you need to pay a lot of respect to the potential of these early ganks. You're incredibly easy to gank early on. You need to play safely. Didn't respect that, and he got punished for it. It's not the end of the world. As a Nasus player, you kind of expect these ganks to come your way. It won't stop him from scaling up. The one gank isn't the end of the world. At 8:45, we get sort of an interesting play where bot lane uses Shen's ult to kind of gank its own lane. They step out of vision and fake their backs. Then they wait for them to push up, and then they walk back into lane and use the Shen ult to gank their own lane, essentially. Kind of a clever play. However, when Shen is goofing around the bot side, Nasus puts those stacks to good work, knocking down that first turret and netting himself a good amount of gold. Flash forward to 10:50, Shen roams down and catches Keen, who had been forced to take a bad path by Hui. It's hard to say for sure, but I feel like Someday didn't communicate that Shen had left the lane. Because if he had, maybe Keen plays a little safer. He already knew that Gragas was on the bot side. That had been pinged out prior. If maybe Someday had communicated that Shen had also left the lane, they would have known they were all heading mid, and maybe Keen plays under tower there instead of trying to push up the wave. Maokai being in the area, trying to help, also gets cut down as well, ends up being a 2-for-none trade for CLG. Jump forward to 17:30, Dig finally make a proactive play with Keen roaming up to clean up a kill on Shen. Attacking the Shen is the correct course of action whenever there is a Shen in the game. It prevents him from making plays elsewhere on the map. Get your top laner advantage so he can keep pressure on the Shen, which will hold him in his lane, and anytime he leaves his lane, they will be punished in the form of turrets. I'm glad they originally made this decision and got sort of on the right track here. A minute further down the line, at 18:30, we get our first big team fight. CLG looked to 5-man collapse on the bot lane that had stepped too far forward. With Shen being quicker on the trigger, they're able to kill Adrian very early on in the fight and turn it into a 4v5. However, Someday and crew are able to return some decent damage onto CLG. This sort of lures them into a false sense of confidence, as Hui still has Shockwave up, and catches 3 as they funnel through a choke. Dig played this honestly pretty poorly. They could have mitigated their losses by accepting Adrian's death, or attempting to pull the fight into the more open lane and try and limit Hui's ability to land huge shockwaves. This fight ends in a 3-for-1 CLG, and they pick up a turret, and this sort of blows the game open. Now CLG have a decent advantage to work with going forward. The game slows down for a bit after this point, which is honestly really good for Dig's only real win condition. which is NASA's split pushing now. It's pretty smooth sailing up until about 25-20. And here we get a 4v4 team fight that breaks out in the mid lane, with CLG engaging on a slightly too far forward Dig. I feel like I've said that before. Honestly, this was a pretty winnable fight for Dignitas. They were down a little bit of gold, but it's not the end of the world. But again, they, for the second time in a row, failed to play around CLG's biggest team fighting tool in Orianna Shockwave. Both carries in the 4-man group managed to get tagged by the Shockwave while their flashes are still up. They absolutely have to respect the ball and be expecting that Shockwave channel to come through and be ready to flash that. The Shockwave landing allows it to be easily wombo comboed with the Fate's Call and Morgana ult, resulting in an easy 4-0 win for CLG in the mid lane. I cannot stress enough how poorly they have played around the ball thus far this game. They funneled right through a choke to get tagged with before, and here they walk. The ball is sitting there, and everybody can see it, and they all walk into range. It is just sitting in the middle of the lane, a few units away from the down turret, and they're just like, this is probably safe to stand next to. Let's walk here. Yay! And I guess I wouldn't even have a problem with that if they had flashed it. Shockwave has a channel time, a pretty decently long channel time. You can see it when the outer ring starts to spin towards the ball, and then it doesn't actually go off until that little animation gets to the ball. So you can flash out of it before then, and they failed to do so. And that's something I expect from this level of play. I expect you to have the reaction time and the attention to detail and the awareness to make those kind of plays, especially when both summoners are up on both their carries, and they both failed to get out of that. That was a winnable fight from Dig, and this play, I think, cost them the game. From here, CLG are able to grab Baron, close out the game pretty damn easily. We get one last team fight at 29 minutes, which starts with Sunday being too far forward and getting collapsed on, and then Dig tries to make a desperation last fight out of that. One last great shockwave from Hui shuts down any hope Dig have left, and nets CLG the win. Honestly, a lot of people are going to point towards the Nasus and not having any playmaking from it in the early to mid game, and sure, that's a reasonable point, but I feel like the big problem for Dig were all the other lanes in this game. The 4-man squad from CLG outplayed the 4-man squad from Dignitas. Altec and Keen both lost lane and failed to execute properly in team fights, and Hui hard carried the CLG 4-man squad in 3 straight fights with 3 straight very good shockwaves. Honestly, Dig had such a hard time playing around the Ori ball, I'd like to see it banned or pick away for the rest of the series. Keen's Talia didn't really do much to inspire me at any point, so hashtag Nasus was not the problem. Hopefully we see Nasus again in NA. I like to pick into certain matchups and feel like having a ticking time bomb like that can force teams into making some risky plays that'll backfire. Anyway, that wraps up Game 1. Thanks for watching. Like it if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't like it. Leave a comment if you have any feedback or anything you want me to see. Subscribe if you want more like that. And click the magic floating box somewhere on the screen in order to get right into the Game 2 recap. I'll see you all there.